What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Meaning of Podcast. I am Ace.
This is RB3.
And this is the podcast where we talk about your favorite filmmakers and the deeper meaning within their films. However, for the first time ever in Meaning Podcast history, we are diving into a television show.
Oh.
Now, if you, this is my disclaimer, even though it's not really a disclaimer. If you haven't seen Atlanta, feel free to keep listening. We're going to get into different themes of the show, but we're not necessarily trying to talk about every single moment that happens in every single episode. So don't worry about being spoiled too much or being ruined from watching the show. Feel free to keep listening. Feel free to enjoy what we have to say about the show and the general themes of the show.
Yeah, and it's not like the show is like, you know, like serialized like a lot of shows. Well, it's pretty serialized, but it's mostly each episode is like its own adventure. So
it has characters that reoccur within every episode, but it's very much not quite like Black Mirror, which is all like one, you know, every episode is one different thing.
Yeah.
But it's very much a one-off episode every time. So there's not usually a continuation of a storyline within an episode. Meaning the show is more a central theme throughout the season, and then different episodes that kind of relate back to that theme. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that. Yeah.
So feel free to keep listening and enjoy this episode. It's going to be a fun one. But before we do that and we dive into the show, we're going to dive into last week's comments where we talked about Avengers Infinity War spoiler review. And RB3 and I had some hot takes back and forth, and we're here to say that we're officially broken up.
Whoa.
We're like the Beatles.
Oh,
it's
no.
over. RB3 and I are no longer on speaking terms. This is the only time.
that's how Marvel movies divide us, bro. Yeah.
No, but seriously, man, you guys are slightly passionate. Y'all Twitter peeps are pretty passionate.
Yeah. Oh,
too.
By the way,
I know you were
all
gonna
you
say
motherfuckers on Twitter, man. Like, I don't know if you saw. I tweeted some shit about DC or whatever.
I saw the tweet, but that's kind of all.
Dude, I'm telling you, all fucking week the DC fanboys have been like trying to eat my ass out, man. Like they've been going in, you know, talking about whatever. I don't give a fuck. All right, for all you DC fans out there, and listen, it's not all DC fans, but all the DCU fans, I'm blocking everybody on Twitter who has a superhero as their profile picture from now on. That's what I'm doing. I'm tired of this shit.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, they don't deserve to be fucking acknowledged. So,
but yeah, I will never understand people's hate for I don't know, man. It's so trivial. It's like, man, why are you getting so worked up about that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just funny because I made a joke and they're like, "Oh, you know." It's like whatever.
Man, I can go on and on about the freaking toxicity of the nerd culture that has become what it is now because it's freaking populated the entire world. Because, I mean, back in my day, kids, when being a nerd was actually a bad thing, and you would get bullied in school, people, you know, it was fun to talk about different opinions and people, but now that there's so many people involved, I feel like it's reached the bottom portions of our society.
Yeah, now DCU Twitter is like the worst place.
And I agree. I was talking to my friend and my brother about it. Like, DC is always gonna be my go-to super. Like, at the end of the day, I was thinking about it the other day where I was gonna go see Avengers Infinity War, and I was like, I'm gonna go wear my Avengers shirt or something. And then I realized, like, as I was going through my closet, I'm like, there's my Batman shirt, there's my Superman shirt, there's my other Batman shirt, there's my other Superman shirt, there's my other Superman shirt, there's my other Batman shirt. And I was like, crap, I love DC like way more. But unfortunately, some of the movies haven't been up to par, aka Justice League, and Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor.
I almost kind of feel like it would be funny if I just once a week I just tweet something like super controversial, and then like we just read like one of those motherfuckers like going off, man. Like,
yeah,
that wouldn't be too bad, dude. Like,
I don't know,
man. Some of these tweets is funny, man.
I feel like it's gonna go into a whole society conversation about this. So let's get right into the comments. We're starting with Lou Bloom, who's on your side.
Oh,
and he said, "I know
one of the only."
there was like 4 or 5 I found that was on your side out of the like 36 comments we got. He says, I agree with a lot of what RB3 says. The stakes are meaningless, and this isn't The Leftovers. Come on, Ace. Do you really believe Marvel will do an exploration on grief and how people cope with the unexplainable, and how they expect me to buy into the deaths if they can't keep Thor one-eyed for one movie. To answer you, Lou, yes, I do believe they will do that. If CW shows can do that, I'm pretty sure Marvel can deal with how Tony Stark and how everyone left alive deals with that grief. I honestly do believe that. I think that's fun, and it's very much an exploratory region of a character, and it's also growth for a character, right? Where the next movie, we can see how the Avengers that are left react. That's my opinion. Obviously, it's not RB3's, but it's my opinion. And I was catching up on a lot of different TV shows, and there's so many different times. Like one of my favorite all-time shows, and I know you probably haven't seen it, Supernatural. But it's season 3, the season 3 finale for anyone who hasn't seen Supernatural. You know, the main character dies, right? Spoiler alert, but it's been out for like 10, 15 years. And obviously he's not going to stay dead. He's the main character of the show. But the exploration he has coming back in season 4 and the way his brother reacts is some of the best arcs we get in season 4, and it's really complete, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So yes, Lou, I do believe that, and that's your one positive comment.
Yeah, my one positive comment. Hey, Lou Bloom, I agree with you, bro. And yeah, you're very right about the Thor. They can't even keep Thor's eye gone from one movie.
The Thor's eye, it's always going to be, I agree with that. It's always going to be dumb and roll your eyes every time they do like a practical thing where it's like, the actor doesn't want to wear an eye patch. Let's write it into the script and undo what we did in the last, and I was just like, they rather undo something they previously wrote into a previous film than just say, hey, Chris, I know it sucks, but suck it up kind of thing.
Yeah. I just hate how the trailers had him with the eye patch too, though. So
Yeah, that's very true. But I'm saying, like, I on a practical level, like, an actor doesn't want to wear an eye patch is kind of what it is. And he's like, let me wear my eyes. Let's write it into the script. Yeah. And it's I don't know.
Still had to fucking, like, CGI his eye some kind of way to make it look stupid.
Yeah.
They couldn't just CGI an eye patch on him, or?
I don't know, man. ZP Program says, I 100% agree with Ace on this one. That being said, RB3's takes was extremely refreshing, and I love how he challenged my thoughts on the movie. If anything, it convicted me more on why I love the movie, because it forced me to truly understand my own counter-arguments. That's a really nice comment. Thank you, ZP. That's
Thank you. Yeah,
he says that he disagrees with you,
that you
but
took some insight from it.
But he took some insight from
Yeah.
it. So that's a nice comment. Alex G says, I listened to the Collider.com podcast where the guys were crapping all over the movie. Then I listened to Collider Heroes where the sweaties were 100% positive. I needed to hear both sides collide, and you guys brought out the balance. Thumbs up. Thank you, Alex G. That's another nice comment.
Yeah. You're picking out the
I know.
the cream of the
I
crop
swear,
here.
I'm just
Jesus
going
Christ.
down the list, guys. This is all the comments you guys had. And with that being said, that's the last comment we're reading. No, I mean, there was a lot of comments that says RB3's crazy.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the movie, but it's just because there's people like the movie. I think it's fine. I just think people need to calm down. If someone doesn't like the movie or doesn't appreciate it, you don't.
Oh, I do
need
like
to
it.
be.
I do like
So,
it.
I
I made that very clear. By the way, I saw one dude who was like, he gave it a D+. That's not true. A 6 for me, a 6 is a high score. For me, a 6 is a.
Personally, I agree with the guy.
Nah, dude,
a 6 is a low score.
Nah,
man.
dude, 6 is high. If anything, I mean, for Rotten Tomatoes, if you give it a 6, that's a positive
That's
review.
true. That's very true.
So I think that's fucking, a 6, 6.5. I'll even go. I saw it in IMAX 3D, and that experience helped bump it up a little bit. I'd go as far as almost give it a 7. Almost. But to me, a 7 is not like a C minus.
Rating movies is also really. It's always difficult to do that.
Yeah, plus, people just throw out 10s, 9s. Like, I'm not the type of person to just do that. So, like, I definitely.
I am.
Yeah, so I feel like the number system. And by the way, to me, if you see a 7, most people see 7 as in like a letter grade, 70%, like a C minus. For me, that's like a strong B, for a movie score.
Sure.
Because if you're like a 1 or a 2, like, that's definitely like not watchable. But if you're in the 3 to like 5 range, it's like watchable but not bad for me at least. But like 6 and 7, that's like I had a good time.
I feel like
that's how I land on it.
I've been like any of you guys listening, I've been like obsessed with this movie like on a hardcore level. Like I've been like dissecting it in different levels and thinking about it and like coming up with theories about it. Like I swear I'm nerding out so hard about this movie. But one of the things that I keep going back to is what are your expectations coming in a movie and what are your previous encounters with what you're seeing on screen is going to be a key indicator into how you ingest the movie, I guess is what I'm saying. So putting that into simple terms, my connection to these characters to the 10th degree is what kind of pulled me into enjoying this film on a gigantic scale. And the more I broke it down, the more I was like, there's other movies that are better. And if you really take all those elements out of the movie, it's an average movie. But me coming into the movie with all these expectations and connections and fulfillments and geek out moments, it's more like endorphins making me feel happy and making me feel pleased of what I'm seeing on screen as a result of my childhood and as a result of like me feeling this like joy, I guess is what I'm saying. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, depending who you are, you're gonna rate this type of movie very differently than someone else. I guess is what I'm saying, and that's okay, guys. It's fine. It's okay. It's a movie, guys. Let's chill out. Mike Aggs 121 says, "Hey Ace, I'm a big Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan myself." Hey, there's one. I love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I don't even know if Marvel Studios is a fan of Agents.
Oh no, they are not a fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Just watch the show and you'll know that they're not a fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, with that being said, guys, let's jump into this episode, which is all about Atlanta. FX's Atlanta, not the city Atlanta. Every time I was telling you, like when I type in Atlanta and they were like, the city? And I'm like, no, the damn show, bro. Like talking back to Google. So we're talking about Atlanta, but we're also talking about Donald Glover, who is in the news somewhat because he has a new Han Solo movie coming out, which a lot of people, including myself, are calling Lando a Star Wars story. Because to be fair, like, I think that would have. What's up?
He's the biggest selling point of the movie.
He's the biggest selling point of the movie, but also it would have been a much more interesting take to do a minor character's background than do like the biggest Star Wars character of all time and try to imitate that with Harrison Ford. I mean, to me, that's such a. I can get into that as well, where it's like, why would they do a Han Solo movie when it's like you're never gonna fulfill the footsteps of Harrison Ford, and you're never gonna fully satisfy the mystery of a background of a character like a Han Solo, right? Like, there's not a lot of people who were asking for that. Whereas like a Lando background, you'd be like, cool. I mean, he's a cool side character, so I would like to know his background. I don't know. To me, that would have been a much better idea for a movie. But also,
I'm not a fan of the Star Wars prequels, like any of them, including Rogue One. I mean, Rogue One's cool. Rogue One's by far the best out of like any prequel they ever made. But even that one is like, all right, it was cool, you know.
Yeah, prequels are tough to do. I'm okay with prequels. I just feel like if you're, why do it for the biggest character ever in Star Wars?
Well, they already did it with the other biggest character, Darth Vader.
Sure, but it's different because he's a guy in a mask versus Harrison Ford, superstar. Everyone knows his face, everyone knows his voice, everyone knows his personality, his mannerisms. Like, you're always gonna fall short. Like, no matter what you do, it's Harrison Ford. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's difficult to imitate that without imitating it and still remain true and not. There's a million different things that I hopefully they find the balance in this movie. But yeah, Donald Glover has his movie coming out, which is Lando: A Star Wars Story. And you're right, dude. Like, he's the biggest selling point. Like, everyone's talking about, you know, his new music video, This Is America. Everyone's talking about SNL. Like, he's...
Atlanta, the show.
Like, he's taking over, like, I was telling you before we started recording, on like a scale where I'm like, everything he touches is turning to gold, and it's kind of crazy and cool because I like the guy and I've been following him for years. We're going to talk about how long we've been following him, but at the same time, it's crazy to see like this guy just friggin' take on the world and making stuff that a lot of people are enjoying to the point where it's like, he's not even like, if you say what's the biggest movie he's ever done, you'd be like, I don't know.
It isn't The Martian.
Yeah, that's probably it. But even that, it's like he has like a couple lines. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, it's not even a big movie star or a guy who was in a cool movie taking over the culture. It's a guy who's made a TV show and made some music that's taken over the culture.
Yeah, I mean, he's been in this business probably longer than most people have.
I agree, yeah. So I'm just saying that I think it's funny how, like, if someone who doesn't know Donald Glover, you would say, like, oh, what movie has he done? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not really movie. It's more like he's just been ingrained in internet culture and just culture in general.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that definitely started out back when he was writing for 30 Rock back in back I think it was like 2002, 2003 or something like that. But if you read Tiffany, not Tiffany, who's the girl who does 30 Rock, the main chick.
Is it Tina Fey?
Tina Fey.
Yeah.
Tina Fey. If you read her book, she talks about like recruiting like Donald Glover while he was still like 21, living in like his NYU dorm room. And he was the youngest writer they had at like NBC at the time or something like that. So and he would often write for the character of Jack Lemmon because they're both, I believe they're both from like the character is from Stone Mountain, Atlanta, Georgia. So he would often write like about his character and family, like backstory like that. So he was a story editor as well. So he's part of the writer's room to begin with on that. Which led him ultimately to like landing that part on Community, that like he became like pretty big off of as well. I just think that's super fascinating. At the same time that he grew up doing like comedy troupes and stuff like that. Like so he was big in like comedy, stand up comedy, improv comedy, and like and like the New York NYU kind of scene. And he even had like his own like web series way back in the day too. So. Going from that and then moving on to Community put him, I think, on like a whole nother stratosphere. Even though Community wasn't that popular and got canceled and brought back a bunch of times after like Chevy Chase left and all that stuff, he still managed to find his place and his voice in that. He was a writer on that and an actor, and even did a lot of the music when they like wrote songs for some of the episodes. He provided a lot of that. But he ultimately left Community to do his music career, which also like brought him into a whole nother like realm of fandom as well, which took a while for that to pop off too, because a lot of people really didn't like him when he first came out. A lot of people really didn't like his music, particularly in hip hop. He was kind of like laughed out of the building for like a long time. Understandably so, when you're like rapping over like Grizzly Bear songs and stuff like that, and rapping about whatever, like so. Yeah. His music, his early music, very early on was like very much like this like disgruntled perspective towards like black culture and like black people, because, and same thing with his stand up too, almost to the point of like it seemed like he felt rejected throughout his entire life for being like this weird kooky character that he always was. Sure. Just being like a nerd or we were talking about the FUBU episode of Atlanta, like just came on last week, but he has a line in one of his songs, "Lights Turned On," from his mixtape EP, or from his record EP, and on there he says, "For us bias, fuck FUBU," or whatever. So like he's obviously had a long-standing kind of relationship with like how black culture has like kind of accepted him over the years, but I think his music has grown progressively to demonstrate a more pro-black perspective over time.
In a very socially aware kind of way too, right? Especially in the moment, and especially where we are now, and especially with the most relevant music video that he's ever dropped, in my opinion, with This Is America. Let's start out too, before we get too into it. What was your first introduction to Donald Glover?
My first introduction
like,
as a rapper.
No, as anyone.
I probably saw Community. It was first time of me like actually recognizing this person as a name was as a rapper. But I used to watch Community. I just didn't know he was like, I didn't know they were the same person. You know what I mean? Like, and it wasn't like obvious at the time. Like you didn't see his face in a lot of his videos or whatever. So then like, or I don't know if he had a lot of videos early on, but like I am not a rapper. It's probably the first time I like heard his like music full on and like really came to appreciate that. Again, it's him rapping over like these like crazy like white people like rock songs or whatever, rapping over those beats, but then making it making it his own and making it his own kind of rap thing. And it was kind of like this satiristic view of like rap music in general. So it really brought like this really different angle to hip hop that was really strange and weird. So back in like 2010, I think I discovered that. So it's probably like when I was still in like middle school. So yeah.
Dude, every time you say that, bro, I'm like freaking 10 years older than you, bro.
No,
It's crazy. Middle school. Damn. I was in college, bro.
Yeah, I don't know.
My first introduction was Community. I love that show, man. Community was my shit, man. I love that show. And with Troy and Abed in the morning, like all that stuff, and then their secret handshake. Yeah. Like my buddies and I were like big fans of the show. Unfortunately, we didn't get 6 seasons in a movie, like Abed always wanted.
Yeah.
But it's so funny. So one of my best friends back in Phoenix, his name is Josh, and he is like a huge hip hop head. Him and I, like, we've known each other since we were like 14.
Yeah.
So we grew up in Phoenix together through high school, through college, through like we started a band, we did music, we did choir, we did hip hop stuff. He was a dancer, I was the rapper. Back in the day when I wanted to be a rapper, you knew that.
Yeah.
And we were hip hop heads, man. Like we loved hip hop to like forever. Like we were obsessed with like music, and like I wanted to be like a rapper and a producer. I wanted to be the next Kanye West. That was like my dream, bro. Like I swear, that was my dream. And my buddy, he was the one who introduced me. He's like, hey, you know that goofy guy from Community? And I'm like, yeah. It's like, yo, this is him. And he turned it up in the car. And he introduced me to Childish Gambino. He's like, oh, he goes by Childish Gambino, blah, 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 blah. He explained it to me. Yeah. And I think it was I'm Not a Rapper, and it was Cool to Sack too, which also was in 2010. Yeah. That was my first introduction. So it was very much like one of the first songs I ever heard from him. I don't think it was the first, but one of the first was his remix / rapping over the All of the Lights beat.
Oh, yeah, I did hear that one.
Turn on the lights in here, baby.
Yeah.
Extra man, I want y'all to see this. Yeah. Like that was one of the first songs I ever heard from him.
It was like the acoustic version of the beat.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was like one of my first introductions to him. And then I became like, I'm telling you, man, I became like a massive Childish Gambino fan. Like I followed his music, I followed his mixtapes, I followed when he dropped like singles, like back when I was like searching the internet and going off different websites for
LimeWire and shit.
LimeWire and stuff, bro. Like I would download the songs, and it's like I would follow like music websites that pulled out articles. I would follow different like not underground rappers, but like indie rappers. Mm-hmm. And he was one of the people that I followed like religiously, to the point where he was one of the inspirations for my my career path, along with Kanye West. Because when Kanye West first popped into the scene, man, Kanye West wasn't the Kanye we know now. Kanye was like pink polo, backpack wearing, through the wire Kanye. Yeah. You know, he was
backpacker with a Benz.
Yeah, Kanye was like, that was like my idea, right? And that, and also with Childish, especially Childish too, because both of them, but especially Childish, where it was like he's a nerd, and I was like, I'm a nerd, and he's a rapper, and I can be that nerd rapper, bro. Like that was my idea as far as being like the nerd rapper. Kind of like Kanye wasn't a nerd, but he was very much like, he's like, I'm just weird. I'm not.
He rapped a lot about being the outsider.
Yeah, I'm not the game. I'm not shooting up joints. I'm not, I'm not this crazy gangster.
Right.
And I'm not trying to be, I guess is what he was saying.
Right. Which is fascinating for somebody like Donald Glover, because he grew up in the streets of like Atlanta and a lot of the a lot of same places that like we see like the big gangster rappers like Migos, 21 Savage, Young Thug coming out of the situations in Atlanta. He lived, and of course Donald Glover lived in like Stone Mountain, so he was in a much more privileged position. He used to go to like white schools and stuff like that, but he still his place in Atlanta and inside of the Atlanta rap game, he had like a very distinct sound, a very distinct kind of personality, but it all kind of came back to the influences of like UGK and Outkast and like all of these timeless ATL like rappers and stuff for him musically. Comedically, he took a lot of influence from like the stuff like SNL or like a lot of the broad mainstream comedies. And of course he always rapped about like nerd shit like Star Wars and Spider-Man. I think somebody on Twitter had a whole thing where they had mentioned how he had because of the internet he had rapped about Star Wars, Spider-Man, and something else. What else is he in? He's in something else like a big property too, if I'm not mistaken.
Donald Glover's in a big part.
Lion King.
Oh, Lion
So
King.
yeah, so he rapped and because of the
and he's
internet,
all in
he's
all
he's in
those.
all of those. Yeah, he rapped about 3 of those things.
Because I remember Community did a panel at Comic-Con back in like 2013, I want to say 2014, a long time ago. And I remember when he was right before he was dropping Camp. Someone in the crowd was like, "Yo, Donald, I'm a big fan of your music. I'm excited for your new album. You know, it's like, do you have anything for us nerds?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I have a song called Bonfire." And that's what the line was. I'm a beast, bitch, girl, Invader Zim. Invader Zim is like something super like weird cartoon that no one watches.
And again, I think that's why a lot of hip hop didn't come to accept him for a long time.
It was, and it was also like one of the reasons why I clinged to him so much, because I was that nerd, and I was like, oh, he's coming to Comic-Con, he's rapping, he's cool, he's got a different flow, he's got his diction was weird in hip hop, because you know about diction in hip hop, and his diction was like over pronunciation, like I can over pronunciate he was very much like. Different.
He had like the white kind of rap,
and I didn't want to say it.
Hey, listen, but
you're saying it for me.
Yeah,
I was gonna say he kind of sounded like how white rappers rap,
yeah,
where they have like very distinctive diction, where it's like I don't want to name like Jeezy, like they rap like very distinctive flow, and I can rap like this because I never stop. Like they rap like that. Lil Dicky has that. Like his diction was like that, but it sounded cooler. Like he made it his own, I guess. Is what
he had
I'm
a little
bit
swagged out to it. Again, I think that also goes to like the ATL influence that he had as well, like the little swag that he put into like the end of his rhymes, like the little beat switches that he would have like halfway through like his songs, like in his early mixtapes. I think that's I think that's a big part of why he kind of built up a cult audience through like a white fan base and like a more, and maybe not white's the right word, but like a non-traditional
mixed
hip-hop
fan base.
Yeah, mixed. He even says that. He says that in one of his songs, one of his songs, "Freaks and Geeks" on the EP record. He says like he likes his girls mixed like his audience. So he definitely took a non-traditional hip hop kind of.
Is that the same song where he's like chilling with the Asian black chick and it's black and yellow?
Black and yellow.
He says he has a lot of lines also in Camp too about Asian girls. A lot of Asian people like Childish Gambino too.
Yeah.
I mean, he was big with the Asian audience as well.
Yeah.
So that's definitely true. It was very much a mixed audience. Latinos, blacks, Asians, white. Like it was much more mixed. I know we haven't even gotten to Atlanta yet, but I love that little throwaway line towards frickin' the when they were in school, the FUBU episode.
Oh yeah.
And we're not spoiling anything. It's just a throwaway line. But when he's like, of course he thinks it's Chinese. This fool's Chinese. And he's like, bro, I'm Filipino, man. And that's so, it rings so true, man. Because I grew up with Filipinos. Like with that friend I was telling you about is like Filipino. Like Filipinos love hip hop, bro. And it's so funny how like they're like, oh, it's Chinese food. It's like, no, bro, I'm Filipino.
He had a funny joke in his stand-up comedy routine where he was talking about like Filipino girls and like how they're like essentially the black girls of Asian girls or whatever.
I always called them the Mexicans of the Asians because that's kind of what they are too.
Yeah. So it's just so funny. He's always had like a kind of connection. I think he just likes Filipino chicks, honestly. I think early on too, but then I think he definitely he definitely like grew as a musical artist and as a writer in and of himself, and a writer and a producer on the cinematic level, or I guess on the television level, because he kept like he worked on Atlanta for like a super long time before he like
with his brother Steven. Shout out to Steven. I was thinking about him last night as I was watching Atlanta. He's written most of the episodes that we've seen so far in season 1 and 2. So shout out to Steven for being the unsung hero of Donald Glover's career.
Yeah, and it's funny,
he's a dope rapper too.
Oh, is he? I've never heard his raps.
Oh yeah, he's dope.
Oh, okay, yeah, check that. But it's interesting though.
He's Paperboy.
Oh, is he?
Spoiler alert. You'll hear the song in the first episode.
Paperboy.
Paperboy.
Oh, is that really his voice? Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, that's why it kind of if you squint your ears, you can hear Donald in there. You can hear Childish because that's his brother, Steven.
Right. What's interesting when you see the show Atlanta make fun of like artists, like when they have the black Justin Bieber in that one episode, or
we talk about favorites. That's one of my favorites.
no, yeah,
bro.
it's definitely
if not my favorite.
Yeah, so it is, or when he has the Clerk County dude in season 2, like, and how it's like the whole idea of like the industry plan. That's what's funny about him. He writes those characters. But he definitely lends his own persona to those characters. And then like a lot of the things that people were saying about Donald Glover early on are the same things that his character will say about these people. Like, I know there's one episode in season 2 where they're all at the college or whatever. And then and
That's another great episode.
Yeah, that was an amazing episode. And then Ern and Lakeith were like talking to each other.
Darius,
and, yeah, Darius, yeah. And then they're like, oh yeah, so that Clerk County dude, totally industry plant, totally. And it's so funny because early on, that's what a lot of people said about Donald Childish Gambino as a rapper. And to be fair, he kind of put himself out there that way because he said he made his rapper name through like a Wu-Tang name generator. Like he really didn't have.
And that's actually true too.
Yeah, that's true.
If you type in Donald Glover, that's what comes out. I forgot mine. I tried it one time. I completely forgot what it was.
Really?
I think it was Anakin Skywalker. No, I'm kidding. It's like some random cool person I want to be.
Yeah.
Thor, God of Thunder. What?
That's hilarious. So I think definitely. So I think that's why he took a lot of he took a lot of those kind of self-deprecating like ideas and put them into like the show. So
absolutely, it's definitely much. It's partially his journey as a hip hop artist. Is kind of what Atlanta's about.
Yeah. And he even said early on when at the beginning of season 1, I heard an interview where he was talking about how this show is not a hip hop show. It's a show about hip hop. You know. And that's particularly important because when Atlanta first came out, this came in the big wave of like the new wave of hip hop shows just starting to pop off, like non-reality shows. Of course, that piece of shit show, Empire, definitely sparked.
You just called out Empire, bro. Hey, people love Empire.
Nah, dude, nobody loves Empire. Let's keep it real here, man.
Hey, man, I started watching Empire like when it first came out.
Everybody was watching Empire,
but I fell off.
Nobody's watching it anymore. Exactly, like when they were new for, I don't know. There's a viral tweet just killed me. When like I think Fox put out like Empire renewed for season 5, and a dude somebody quote tweeted and said like, yeah, I missed one episode, never came back. I feel like that's 90% of his audience. Yeah, because when Empire came out, bro, that was the #1 show in America.
It was
the #1 show in America, in the world, almost, like, because
it's a great concept.
Yeah, this hip hop, Empire, yeah. And the first season was dope. First season was really cool.
It was.
After that, it just became silly and ridiculous. Yeah. But because of that, because of the success of Empire, we saw everybody. Netflix bankrolled hip hop show immediately with the Get Down.
That's right. I forgot about that show.
Yeah, and of course, unfortunately, canceled now. FX did Atlanta. Stars was already doing that show with 50 Cent.
That's right. I was gonna say
Power. Yeah,
Power. That's what it's called.
It was already out before, but like it grew in popularity and became like a ultra mega success. Sure. After Empire as well. So like a lot of what hip hop television has become over the years is thanks in large part because of Empire. But this is probably the one show that like lasted it out in terms of like cultural relevance the longest. So.
I'm gonna ask you, what do you think that is? Is it quality or is it something more?
I think for me, what it is the fact that it's a real hip hop show about like the hottest spot in hip hop. Of course, Atlanta's like
that's right,
the spot for rap music at the moment. Migos, 21 Savage, like I said, like all of the big rappers, Lil Yachty, all of Quality Control, Lil Baby, all comes out of Atlanta. And it's because it represents that in a certain type of way to where not only Atlanta rappers can identify with it. You know, I remember there was one episode early in season 1 that used the Kodak Black song in the intro. And Kodak Black went on and tweeted like, "Oh, I can't believe the best show on TV like used my song or whatever, you know, or some shit like that." I don't know if it was like that. Kodak doesn't really speak English, or like sensible English at least. Yeah. But it's interesting because I think in large part the success of this show is due because it appeals to like the streets and the hood and the rap community in general, but also is just weird enough, just surreal enough, and just like quirky enough to appeal to like us film nerds, us like cinephiles and stuff like that too. So it has a very weird and interesting mixture of the cultures. And I think Donald Glover, salute to him. He's always been a big nerd, a big film fan, a big cinephile, and also a pretty successful rapper. So merging those two worlds together definitely helps.
Is what Atlanta is.
Yeah,
it's a merging of, you're right, it's a merging of cinephiles, actual like tangible art is what people would call it,
right,
mixed with like, that shit is funny, right, for like you said, like the black community and stuff,
right,
where they're just like, that shit was funny, that shit was wild. So I appreciate it, I guess, is what it is. It is that merging of two worlds. And you're right, Atlanta picking. Let's talk a little bit about, we're obviously going to dive into the show a little deeper, but let's talk a little bit about the city and what it's become. I was thinking about this after watching Infinity War, because guess what, guys? Infinity War was shot in Atlanta. All the movie was shot in Atlanta. Atlanta is becoming kind of like, a buddy of mine just moved out there to keep pursuing his career in acting and all that. Like, that's crazy. Like, when I heard that, when my brother told me that, because it's my brother's friend, and he's also a friend of mine, and he's like, yeah, he moved out to Atlanta to keep pursuing acting. I was like, moved out to, you see what I'm saying? Like, that to me is like, that's crazy, because for the past how many hundreds, not hundreds, but like
last 100 years,
it's been Hollywood. I'm moving to LA to become a famous person. I'm moving to LA to become an actor. I'm moving to LA to become this.
I want to be in the pictures.
Yeah, and now it's like a buddy of mine moved to Atlanta to become an actor. Like, you don't hear that. And like, that's unheard of, right? Any other city in the U.S., right? Maybe like, if it's Bollywood or Nollywood or Tokyo or something like that. But that's different, that's anime, that's different movies. But when it comes to American culture in general, it's going to be L.A. And it's always going to be L.A. But is it now? Because Atlanta's becoming like a second L.A.
Yeah.
Almost to the point where it's becoming competitive with L.A. I keep up with people on Instagram with The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead's all shot in Atlanta, obviously.
Yeah, it's trying to Tyler Perry Studios.
That's right.
Yeah.
And now people up in The Walking Dead, you see their Instagram story, and they're like, "What up? We up in ATL? What's up?" And it's like just random. And I'm like, shit. Like, the whole crew of The Walking Dead lives in Atlanta. They don't even just like shoot there. They live there now, and they're like off season, but they're still like in Atlanta, and it's becoming like a cultural vibe where like they're shooting big movies there. They did a Baby Driver there. They did like a ton of movies there, and they do all the Marvel movies and a bunch of TV shows, and it's becoming kind of, and obviously the music scene is the biggest in the world. I mean, the biggest in like anywhere else because of the hip hop scene. So Atlanta, what do you think of that as far as like what it's becoming and what it's brewing up to be?
Right. I mean,
can it be competitive with LA eventually?
I think,
because right now obviously it isn't, but eventually.
I think it is kind of competitive with LA when it comes to the reason why a lot of businesses and particularly a lot of films like left LA is because like they rolled back some like tax cuts. That California.
That's an easy.
Yeah. So like as soon as that started happening, plus Atlanta started giving out a lot of tax breaks for production there. They built Pinewood Studios in Atlanta, and again, again, not like a great artist, but a big contributor to what happened there. Tyler Perry, man, I mean, like his filming and his like participation in like shooting all of his movies in Atlanta to begin with, definitely brought a lot of business to the film production area of Atlanta, and kind of revigorated like their film tax stuff and stuff like that. So and that's why we see him building a massive studio property there, a massive studio lot, like a literal lot himself. And then we see Pinewood Studios going there. The only Pinewood Studios there was before was in London. Yeah. So they moved their second, and I think if I'm not mistaken now, I think the Atlanta stage is actually bigger. Than
Pinewood was the biggest in the world.
Pinewood was the biggest in the world. I think the Atlanta stage is if not as bigger, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So the film production is growing and expanding more and more as time goes on there. And the more and more stuff you see at the end with like the little peach, Georgia, and even shows that are not necessarily set in Atlanta, like the show Queen Sugar. I'm personally a big fan of Ava DuVernay does. That's set, I believe that's set in I don't know exactly where it's set, but they shoot it in Atlanta, but it's set in the South, somewhere in the South, but they shoot it in Atlanta essentially. So as you the production code does a lot of it, all that kind of stuff. And on the music scene, of course, we see producers like Metro Boomin coming out of Atlanta, and a lot of other big name producers, Southside music producers, making like these beats, and really the producers are really what puts the rappers on these days,
100%.
Yeah, I mean Metro Boomin, he worked with Future, collaborator with Future, another Atlanta artist, who grew up Future was in the same realms of like the Outkast, and like he was in the same houses, in the same workshops with them. So he grew up and did his own thing. And then like when he started working with Metro Boomin, and that's really where his career popped off, and then Metro popped off as well. So then through Metro, you see people like 21 come up, 21 Savage, and all these other artists just grow up and not grow up, but like literally blow up and become big. And Migos, of course, were big since like forever.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that too the other day, is like what people don't realize in the hip hop game, because as someone who's like obsessed with it, 50% of your success, if not more, is based on your producer. Mm-hmm. And you can shout out to any rapper with a famous producer behind him. That's how Kanye got his success. Kanye got his success because he put people on the map with his production, with his beats. If you got a dope beat, at the end of the day, even if you're an average rapper, you have a shot. If you have a really dope beat, like that's Kanye, that's even freaking Macklemore with Ryan Lewis. That beat is fire. Like, say what you want about Macklemore, but Ryan Lewis makes some dope beats.
I think Macklemore is like not a bad rapper.
He's fine too, but it really is. I still feel like Macklemore got his success because those beats were
those beats were fire.
Shit, you heard that and you're like, dope. So with that being said, dude, Ludwig Göransson is his name. Ludwig is 50% in my opinion why Childish popped off, because those beats were fire. And Ludwig is a master producer who obviously did the music for Black Panther.
He studied film composition. He studied film at the USC Masters program. So he definitely he had a lot of film based, like, I'm sure him and Childish Gambino were able to speak the same language in like a lot of those ways.
Absolutely. And he's part of the reason why Donald Glover, Childish Gambino popped off, because those beats were fire, dude. Like the beats and Because the Internet are dope. The beats, like he's made some incredible beats.
Heartbeat from Camp.
Heartbeat is crazy. Friggin' A. That's such a dope. Like, that's part of the reason why that song even popped off in the first place. Yeah. But that is like such a big picture. And you're right. A lot of them are from Atlanta. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that's a big thing. But Atlanta's popping off, man. With that came the commencement of this show, basically, and what FX, what's his face? Donald Glover has like talked about it a lot. He's talked about how FX kind of really took a chance on him and let him be kind of 100% creative. Gave him a small budget, because it was, I mean, if you rewatch the first 3 episodes, are pretty much like, especially the second one, I think is what it is. It's just shot in the apartments. Yeah. And you're like, this is just shot in an apartment. This is so low budget. Right. And yet everyone's watching it. But with the small budget and with 100% creative freedom to Donald and his team, because he has a team, Stephen Glover, his brother, and then the director.
Hero, I can't pronounce his last name, unfortunately.
I think come on.
A Tokyo-based filmmaker who came from
He does all of Donald's. Hiro Murai.
He did the short film that accompanied Because of the Internet, or Because the Internet. That was like 24 minutes. Also featured like Chance the Rapper. He did a lot of the other videos that Childish Gambino is responsible for, like a lot of his bigger
music videos.
Yeah, like 3005, and also a couple others.
Did he do Bonfire?
I don't know. He definitely did the one that was like, you remember that? I don't know. I can't remember exactly which song it was, but the one that like Donald Glover was like in the restaurant and just like walking around and like dancing.
Oh, that's not Freaks and Geeks. That's Don't Be Mad Cause I'm Doing Me Better Than You Doing You. What's the song called? It's called I forget.
But yeah, because the Internet, by the way, probably one of the most influential rap albums to come out in like the past. Like,
this album's fire, dude. Yeah, that album's fire.
Yeah, it's so fire. Good. And I think, again, that's the one that kind of put him in the mainstream hip hop conversation. As well as gave him like the artsy kind of edge that he was looking for to do initially. And I think that's a pretty big step for him. It got nominated for the Grammy for Best Rap Album when it came out. And a lot of people thought it should have won. I don't even remember what else
I was going to say what won that year.
I know Yeezus was nominated. I can't remember what else like came out in that year particular.
What's your favorite song from Because the Internet?
Oakland. Yeah, Oakland. Oakland.
You took mine, bro.
Hey, man.
That song, that's another one where
amazing.
the beat is just like,
yeah.
And it's just like, wow, those drums are crazy. Like, and then the chorus is fire. I mean, I like
World Star is great too.
I like a lot of weird songs off of some. Like
Flight
Flight
of
of
the
Navigator
Navigator,
is like
yeah.
probably my second favorite
Yeah.
from that album. Also, the one we were talking about is called Sweatpants.
Sweatpants. Yeah, Sweatpants.
But basically, you're right. That one is Because the Internet became very influential. And you're right, Chance the Rapper. Right. Look at what Chance became the last 2 years, man.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I went to that hip hop festival that I went to, I think I told you about it.
Yeah, you told me, yeah.
And when Chance the Rapper came out, and like people were losing their minds, dude. It was crazy. And then obviously Kanye came out. But Chance, right 2015, 2016, when he was popping off, part of the reason why was because he had the similar connection,
kind of edge of like I'm a different outsider.
I'm a weird kind of scrawny looking rapper who has this flow, a weird flow. Because Chance had a weird flow. Like when he first came out, my buddy introduced me to Chance the Rapper.
Acid rap.
And I was like, acid rap was the one. Yeah, right. And it was like, I was like, who is this? This guy sounds so weird because he has the voice cracks and stuff.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know if I can handle this for an entire album. But eventually I got kind of into him.
Yeah, as soon as he started doing the whole Bible thing, I kind of had enough,
Hey, man. What you got against the Bible, bro?
Not against the Bible, but I can't vibe with somebody who's like always preaching in his fucking records, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Coloring Book was...
You mean like Kanye West?
Oh, man. All right, we're not talking about Kanye.
Old Kanye? I miss the old Kanye. Did you see that?
Kanye,
did you see that random tweet thread? I like how we go off on different tangents, but when someone said that, they just literally tweeted out, I miss the old Kanye, and there's like 20 comments that finished the song.
Oh, that's funny.
It's dope. Because it's so funny to see how like you see the pictures. One of them is like a 16-year-old like white blonde girl. And there's like old guys, young guys, but you see like the Twitter profiles and you see like who they are. But they're literally rapping that out after the whole Kanye tweet thing.
Man, there's been so many good Kanye.
I was gonna let's make a Kanye meeting of episode.
Absolutely not.
We kind of should though.
Man. I can't support Kanye no more.
I'm talking about the old Kanye.
Nah, man.
Come on,
I
man.
just can't anymore, man.
Yeah, that was pretty rough. I was texting you about it.
Coonery.
I
can't. Hey, but
that's some harsh language, bro.
There was a great tweet that was like that had like the Kermit meme of him like looking into the mirror, like the alter ego. Yeah. Man, I can't remember exactly the tweet, but it was something like I'm feeling pressured. So what? It's a lyric from My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. It's like I'm feeling pressured. I'm feeling pressure from the scrutiny. What do I do? Act more stupidly as like the mirror reflection.
No, that's Can't Tell Me Nothing.
Oh, Can't Tell Me. Is that it? Yeah. That's just funny though. It's like a perfect meme. Like
I think in that song he has like a Cosby line too. He has a lot of Cosby lines in that too.
Yeah, he's always had an admiration for.
Yeah, he does.
He tweeted that.
Doesn't hold up.
Yeah. But back to Childish Gambino and Donald Glover in Atlanta. Reason I mentioned because the internet, because I feel like a lot of what that album talks about is like how internet culture kind of influenced rap music in and of itself, and that's something that the show Atlanta pokes fun at oftentimes. You see in one of the episodes early on with another Filipino guy coming in with the hat. The Instagram what was his name again?
I forget, dude. Instagram homie. I forgot his name though.
Yeah.
That's so early on, dude. I haven't rewatched season 1, so that's what
I watched season 1 like a lot. So like I'm very that character is funny, and it is also hilarious because a lot of people that's
episode 4.
Yeah, episode 4, yeah. I can't remember the character's name.
I forget his name too.
Yeah, but oh man, he's so funny because it's funny because a lot of people think that character represents like a DJ Academics like type of like web journalist, like the Instagram, kind of thing.
Yep. And that's your homie, bro.
Hey man, I like Academics. But it's just funny how he represents that as like this cartoony kind of over the top. Hey, let me follow you on Instagram, bro. The super soft dude or whatever. So I think that's just funny, and I think it speaks a lot to like how social media influences the rap game. And we even see that in a more recent episode in season 2, with Paperboy dating like this Instagram model or whatever. And she's very much obsessed with posting pictures with him and, getting all these likes and comments, and how that kind of fuels her flame. Whereas Paperboy's trying to keep it real and just be his own thing.
Yeah.
And how that contrast has to like match up to some extent, So I think because the internet addresses a lot of those themes of like how interwoven our culture, our memeage, to a certain extent, is with the actual hip hop community. I think that's very evident in the song World Star, early on in that album too. How like the World Star, how putting up fights on World Star is like this big internet thing, where the original purpose of World Star was to post hip hop content and music videos and stuff like that. But it became more known for fights and like and other crazy shit. So
yeah, that's such an interesting point for sure. Let's dive into season 1 of Atlanta. When season 1 premiered, Atlanta, like you said before, it kind of, like when I was recommending it to friends of mine. So when I started watching the show, 2 buddies of mine from work, we would watch it at the same time, and then we would talk about it afterwards. Because come on, guys, it's a 20-minute episode, so we can literally watch it at lunch. Yeah. So we would watch it at lunch and just have like a little Atlanta after show. Because we worked in an office where 2 of our coworkers left, so we had an entire like space for like 5 or 6 or 8 people, and it was 3 of us. so we had like a little office to ourselves, like our own little separated office. Really? So we would watch it and then talk about it afterwards. But that's kind of how we got into it, because we would talk about it, we would laugh about it. But when I first started watching it, as we would recommend it to other people in the office, it was so funny how you pitch the show, right? It's like, how do you pitch it to someone when you recommend it? Like, if you pitch a different show to someone, like a brand new show, I say like, oh, like you should watch Game of Thrones. It's like a medieval fantasy world, but it's still very true and still very grounded, right? It's very cool. It's very Game of Thrones. I mean, it's very realistic. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings. When I pitched Atlanta, I pitched it as like, it's a weird, funny, quirky, like show about like hip hop in Atlanta, which is kind of like the quick little logline pitch, right? Yeah. But I think a lot of that came from these characters. So Ernest, Donald's character, is very much true to Donald himself.
Yeah. Princeton graduate.
Yeah. And he's coming from school. He moves back in home, I think is what it is.
He dropped out of school, is like moving back home with his parents, but his parents won't let him stay there. And
then he gets the idea to become the manager for his cousin who's kind of blowing up in the internet kind of culture of hip hop, right? Because he's not mainstream, obviously, but he's blowing up enough to get hits, which is kind of what it is now. And then from there we meet his cousin, who's like the most like leave me alone type person.
Which I think I think that's what's so good.
Leave me alone. I'm tired. I just want to chill.
It definitely gets the different personalities that come out of Atlanta. Because I know a lot of people from Atlanta. I've never been to Atlanta, but like I know a lot of people. And there's definitely like those 3 archetypes of like the Donald Glover, the Darius, and the
I haven't even gotten to Darius yet, but I wanted to say like Darius. What Darius brought to me was like his first introduction was literally like talking to like Donald's parents, to Ernest's parents, and he's like, "Hey, how tall is your tree? Hey, you mind if I cut your tree down and I take it home?" Or he said something weird, and it was so weird that you're like, and the dad is like, "No, you can't do that." But when he's responding to it, it's so funny because he says like, there's a conversation where they have in the car where they're talking about a certain issue, and he like jumps in with like random shit, like random ass shit, and it's funny because you're like, oh, this is the crazy guy, like he's playing like the crazy quirky guy who's just insane, and the best character in the show, especially season 1.
They definitely they utilize a lot of, and of course the son's.
Oh no!
Like I'm a fucking whatever. They use a lot of like different conventions, and like those 3 definitely are like the 3 different people I could definitely see like representing like Atlanta in some sort of way or fashion, which is just hilarious to me. And because like I definitely have a lot of family from the South, cousins from the South and stuff, and they all are the very slow talking, like almost mumbling type of like dudes who just want to sit and like drink a 40 or whatever. Yeah. So he definitely gets that across, and he's like this drug dealer, and so it's like the contrast between being in the streets and like actually being about that life, and then also like just trying to survive and like, you know what I mean?
I just want to watch TV and chill.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with drug dealing, I mean, shit, the way he was doing it, he probably can just sit around and play. But if he was trying to pursue the music thing full time, I think that's definitely where he builds a lot of that off of. And the actor who plays Alfred, I think his name is Brian Tyler. I can't remember his last name. Brian Tyler or something.
It's Brian Tyler Henry. Tyree Henry.
Brian Tyree Henry is actually, he's fun. It's interesting because I think part of Ern's main backstory, Ern being like a Princeton graduate who dropped out and moves back to Atlanta, is in some way reflective of Brian Tyree's like actual real life. He did attend like Yale as like a student, and he actually did end up finishing, but like majoring in acting and stuff. I mean, came back to like his home and to pursue the acting thing full time. So I think it's interesting that he writes in the trace of like the rest of his stars and interweaves that into and
that's such a good point. You're right, because you're right. Ernest is playing. Donald is playing himself in a way.
Yeah.
Brian is playing himself, but it's also part of.
But it's also part of Ern too. Yeah.
And and it's also Lakeith is playing Lakeith.
yeah.
Let's face it, because we were at Comic-Con when Lakeith was there.
Yeah.
And then I went to the Death Note premiere, and you unfortunately couldn't get in. That was a shit show, man. That was crazy. Duh, shit show.
Yeah, that was
like,
crazy.
Duh, you should have seen Inside.
Oh, really?
Inside, it was crazy. People were like going nuts, man, because they were like, we don't have seats. Wait, we do have. Wait, who's sitting where? Wait, you move back. You move here, and they moved us like 20 times. Yeah. No joke. Like, you should have seen like freaking Perry and Emma. They were freaking out.
Yeah,
I tried to keep it chill.
I was literally like trying to wait in line for you.
Yeah,
I was there before y'all were. Yeah. That was crazy, and they still didn't let me in.
Yeah, that's
fucking Netflix.
Up. Yeah, Netflix was weird. But anyways, we got to listen to Lakeith a little more. Lakeith is. Yeah, every time when I finally got to meet him a little bit, and especially with the Perry interview and when he like sat down with Perry and shit, like you realize like, oh no, this is Darius. I'm pretty sure that's him just playing himself. He's like a different version of himself. But yeah, you're right. They keep true to it's very much writing true to self type of content, type of episodes is what he's writing. So that's a very interesting point. The season as a whole started out as a very comedic, funny season. There's so many, but at the same time, what made Atlanta such a popular show, there's a lot of reasons why it became a popular show, but one of the main reasons was because it was so socially conscious of what it was trying to say about quote unquote the culture, and what it was trying to say about not just the hip hop game and how it's changed and how it's become something that's not as exclusive as it once was. It's much more on a different level. I don't know. What do you think that the show is trying to say on a social level, but also on a cultural level, especially with media and entertainment?
Well, I think on a social level, kind of different from like the entertainment level, but it does say like the worth of money to like the disenfranchised, like the impoverished. There's that whole episode where Ern is like trying to pawn his phone off, but instead Darius convinces him, instead of like pawning the phone for money, he's trading it for a sword, and then like Darius promises like he'll make 3 times his money back or whatever. I don't know if you remember that episode.
That episode's hysterical.
Yeah.
I love that episode. He's like, no, I can get you more, man. Going to the pawn shop. He has the sword on the back, the samurai sword. Yeah, of course. I remember that. And it's because Darius is my favorite. Like, I can't lie. He's my favorite character in the show.
Oh, yeah. He's hilarious, man.
He's so funny. He's
so good. And then, but I mean, in the end, it kind of has a very potent message about like how people say if black people invested in this, they'll make so much money. If you did this and you invest in that, but a lot of the times for people of color living in these like low income communities, you can't afford to like be putting money and throwing it away and waiting for a year to make it back and hoping to make it back. You can't afford that kind of gamble. You can't afford that kind of luxury. Money is finite, especially for poor communities, and especially for poor people as well. So it's definitely saying like the value of money is weighed more and more, and I think that's a theme that continuously weighs on throughout the series. How money affects and the value of money, how it kind of how the value of money in and of itself is more precious than like what you have to use the money for. In a certain type of way, we see that in the episode where Ern is like literally has like $30 in his bank account, but he's trying to like take his girl out to dinner.
That's a great episode too.
Yeah. So it's like he's very much like tight for that, and it's also in the episode where we do end up getting a payoff to that whole joke of like
in season two
where he finally does get the money, but he can't spend it all because like his fucking cousin or the fucking Tracy who just got out of jail is like fucking hoodwinked them, you know what I mean? So it's very much and again, there's more and more examples of how that theme of money and the value of money to these poor areas and these poor people,
and it's also
a lot more
the value of money within the hip hop community too, right? Because it's also the concept, especially we get that in season 2 with the strip club concept, where it's like, because that whole episode's about money, and it's about how like, hey man, don't be cheap, bro. You in the strip club,
you're trying to stunt, you gotta stunt, man. You gotta stunt. Yeah.
So it's like, come on, man, pay her. She's dancing. Like that's the kind of thing. When the announcer is like talking to him, he's like, yeah, you in the green shirt. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Look, she's dancing for you, man. But that's kind of the concept of wealth in that as well. That's a very interesting point. What about entertainment? Let's talk about probably one of, if not my favorite episode in the show, which is season 1, episode 5. Nobody Beats the Biebs is what it's called. And this episode is definitely, as I said before, one of my favorites, but it's freaking hysterical. And it steps outside of to be self-aware, but at the same time it stays within its own pocket, if that makes sense.
Right.
They never really like wink at the camera too much. They always try to keep it serious, but basically the entire episode is about how Alfred, the rapper, is playing a basketball game for charity, but he's playing it with other artists, and one of the other artists that he's there with is Justin Bieber. But the twist is that Justin Bieber is this, instead of being a little white kid, skinny little scrappy white kid who's always getting into trouble, it's a little scrappy little black kid who's always getting into trouble. And they're playing basketball together, and Alfred is kind of tired of his antics and of his cockiness, so he decides to play basketball a little harder, even though it's for charity and everyone kind of plays it easy. But it's so freaking funny. It's so funny because it's like how much of an asshole Justin Bieber is in the episode, and how much he like talks shit like on the court and stuff. Like one of my favorite lines is like, someone in the crowd is like, "I love you, Justin," and he's like, "I know, bitch," or something like that. I forget what he says, but it's so funny. And then he does like the stupidest shit throughout the entire episode. But the best part is at the end of the episode where he's like, he goes up to the podium and he's making like an apology, like a press conference, and he's like, "I just want to say, I apologize for my actions. They were inappropriate. With that being said, I wrote a song about my apology." And it's like, whoa! And he starts like dancing and doing like this little Justin Bieber thing. "I said, I'm sorry, girl." And he's like dancing around the stage.
Donald Glover actually sung the song.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. And then you could see Ern in the back, Donald Glover, and he's just like shaking his head like, what is going on?
Well, that was another funny like B story of Ern like talking to all the different managers, like upstairs. Yeah. And like where the one lady thought he was like this manager, like screwed him over, but like they were like super close, and then
he played along and he
didn't realize that like she was really setting him up to like fuck him over. But she had no idea who he actually was. She just thought he was like another black dude. And all black people look the same. That's the joke, guys. But
it's still really funny.
It's so funny how that ended up playing out. How that probably ended up screwing Ern more than he did. I love that episode because I think that it touches on how a lot of the hip hop community, the black community, kind of feels about Justin Bieber in general, and how a lot of people feel like some of his music is like cultural appropriation, and some of his antics, just the way he like used to affiliate with like all these like gangbangers and all this kind of stuff. Like he very much like dove himself deep into like what black culture was like actually. What he perceived as black culture to be, so he used that as like a marketing thing for him for a long time. I think this episode provides like kind of a funny little commentary.
How do you feel about that?
How do I feel about Justin Bieber? Or?
Yeah, Justin Bieber's appropriation of his antics of what he was doing.
Well, I was never mad at it. I mean, I thought the shit was funny. I love when he was like pissing in buckets and shit, like in the back of restaurants. You know, I thought that was like peak Justin Bieber for me.
Yeah.
But I think it's just interesting that he for a while he really surrounded himself with like a lot of black people and a lot of his frankly, sorry y'all, I'm gonna keep calling y'all out. A lot of his white fans like kept getting at him for like, oh, if it's not Justin Bieber's fault that he's acting like this. It's the people he's hanging around, you know, like all that type of shit. You know what I mean? Speaking like dog whistle and shit. You know, I hear it, but so that's what a lot of it was. So then this episode kind of does a reversal of it. Like, oh, what if Justin Bieber was black? Would he still be able to get away with like a lot of things he gets away with? But then it's, you know, it goes down to a much deeper rooted thing of like, people want the good guy and the bad guy, you know, and what Bieber represents and what Chance the rapper, for example, represents, and what a lot of like more of the pop mainstream, you know, industry plant people kind of represent are the more positive, the good guys, the I'm sorry if I, you know, and you know, the apology song that he sings is very reminiscent of the didn't I say I'm sorry from the Justin Bieber I'm sorry.
Oh
joint.
yeah, I'm sorry.
So that's
sorry.
Yeah, exactly. That's a play on that. So like it's very clear that it's just saying like it's more of the game of the hip hop or of music in general to pin these two kind of personalities against each other. And I think that even gets further subverted in season 2 when they introduce the Clark County character, and that guy is so like is so
that
nice,
guy's the best.
Yeah, he's so nice and so like presentable like in the real world, but like when you see him like inside of the studio, he's like passively aggressively like attacking the engineer like nonstop. That to me is my favorite episode of season 2.
I was gonna say of all the episodes,
probably not all. I still say the Invisible Car one.
That's the best. That's the best episode. Let's jump into before we get into.
I was gonna say Bam though. Bam. Or we're gonna go.
That's what I was gonna go into.
Okay.
But this one I think was like, is this the one with the commercials too?
The commercials, yeah.
Holy shit! This episode. So basically, the premise of this episode, guys, and again, we're not really getting into super spoilers, but it's about Al. Al is on a talk show, and this one is probably one of the most. It says a lot about like social commentary is what it's trying to say.
Yeah, black culture in general. Yeah.
About everything. But it says a lot.
Yeah.
But basically, they're trying to almost put like a psychology thing on him. And then at the same time, it has fake commercials throughout the episode, which I thought were real when I first saw it. I don't know if
I literally thought the episode was only like 10 minutes because I kept fast forwarding through.
You fast forwarded it?
I literally the first time I watched it, I fast forwarded through like when they were like cut to commercial. I like fast forwarded through on the DVR or whatever, and literally it was like, what? This episode only 10 minutes long, and then like I literally had to go online and read like, oh, the commercials are part of the thing too.
Those commercials were so funny. I mean, the whole premise of the episode too, because it's also Alfred, but it's also this kid.
Yeah.
Is this the same one, right?
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
The transracial.
Yes. Where it's this like 16-year-old kid, and it's like a very proper guy comes out and he's like, "Hello, my name is blah blah blah, and I'm going to tell you the story of this guy named John, and he's like, John is a 16-year-old kid living with his mom and blah blah blah, but he has a different story." And he's like, "I'm 16 years old, but I identify as a 42-year-old white man."
I love how they'll ask him each time for like which job you work at. He'll say something different.
Yeah. That episode is so funny because it's very much a commentary on what and I don't want to step on toes, but that's kind of the point of the episode, is to step on toes, is like, what is identity now? Like, identity has become something to where it's too much of a flexible kind of thing, where it's so flexible to the point where it's getting ridiculous. Like, you can't just go around saying and identifying with certain things that aren't real because they're as fake as what you're trying to identify with, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Right, and I think that's exactly what they're saying in this. Like, it very much speaks to the whole problem that, I guess, I'll say problem that who's the Rachel Dawes chick who was like the head of like the NAACP branch in like Washington D.C.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And she, it was revealed that she was really white the entire time, just
Yeah.
playing as black. I think it was a commentary on that, like, and when that whole thing popped off, it was a big commentary. A lot of conversation was like, can you be transracial? Can you identify as another race? Whereas sex and gender, whereas sex is something that you're born with, and gender is like the identification of that sex. Can you be born into a race, but then like choose to become another race? And that's a very sensitive issue that a lot of people have been debating. And this movie the show kind of tackles that in like a very comedic type way of like the fake news coverage of, and I love, by the way, all of this ripping on BET, all of it, every single little bit of this is like ripping on BET. If you watch BET late enough at like night, you'll get to where they're making fun of this shit at. And like Centric One and like all these other like black networks. And it's just so funny how I love how when that whole thing starts, it starts in like the super long clip of like them looking up into the trees and then finally pans down. It's like, it's exactly how these things are edited. And it's just funny that when they actually had him on the show with the other lady who was there, because the whole point of the whole discussion was to pin Alfred for saying something about, what do you say, something about gay people or something like that.
Oh yeah.
So they're trying to pin him on being homophobic, but the whole time he was just like deflecting and justifying his reasons for that. But then like when the transracial guy comes on, then he's just like laughing his ass off, and everybody can agree like, yeah, this is a little ridiculous, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just interesting how I think this show both accepts the LGBTQ like identification movement, not just LGBTQ, but like the whole gender identification movement in general. But then also says like, all right, this transracial shit is like taking it too far to a certain extent. So,
sure, and it's also like, I love how at the end, I forget the exact, because I haven't rewatched it, but at the end the reporter is like, I forget what she says, but she's like, okay, but let's get back to the point. Why do you hate gay people? When she says that, it's like, why do you hate them though?
Yeah,
I don't understand.
yeah. Or it's like, yeah, or he was like, or when him and the lady like finally started.
Oh yeah, they agree.
Yeah, and then the dude's like, but you hate gay people, or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just exactly they're trying to, and again, that's a lot of what these shows points are, like those talk shows to like pin rappers against like these like famous authors or whatever, to try and like pinpoint like their ignorance or whatever. But
sure,
Alfred kind of stands up for himself and does that well. I think the commercials also speak a big volume to like big volume. It speaks a lot to like what. Like a lot of the issues that are problematic with a lot of these commercials, like how they keep advertising this whole Dodge Charger thing.
That's the best one.
Yeah,
because it keeps going throughout. The other ones kind of have like a one-off thing.
Yeah.
The price is on the can though.
Yeah.
The price is on the can though.
Yeah. And it's another
that's an Arizona iced tea.
Yeah, I think it's another like commentary on the whole money situation.
That's true.
Right? Like, why is he being upcharged for such shit?
And I love how the guy who scans it agrees with him. He's like, "You're right. The price is on the can." But the Dodge one is the best one because it has a running theme throughout it.
Yeah. He's like he's celebrating like this life of just living in this amazing car, but like when you find out towards the end, he doesn't have a house, he doesn't have a wife, he doesn't have a family. Yeah. He doesn't even have pants.
Yeah. He shows up with no pants.
Yeah. He's literally just driving his car, you know.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's another thing of like what wealth, how we determine wealth, how we show wealth and demonstrate wealth.
But it also has the kids Cookie Crisp one,
which
is the most socially one.
Yeah, big on like police brutality and stuff like that. Yeah.
Courtney's like, I forget what it is, but it's a commentary on the Trix commercial where it's like the Trix rabbit keeps stealing the cereal, and then they have like the fake Trix rabbit, but they have him like steal the cereal.
Yeah,
and
like
the kids are like, they stole my cereal, and the cop just like beats the shit out of him and stuff. It's super dark, but it's actually like super relevant too.
Yeah, and I think
commentary on that too.
I think that's what's interesting about Atlanta as the show, because a lot of times it brings you I think
it's dark comedy.
It's dark comedy, and I think it definitely plays in the sense of like how we laugh at these comedic moments, how they really have like a dark edge to them, you know.
Sure.
And how like the real world consequences of these like kind of things like kind of end up playing out. And you know, I mean, to me that was most relevant in season 2, but we're gonna get to season 2 after season 1. But that's definitely like where I think I definitely think like that's where the comedy lies a lot of times. Like here's this funny thing, but we're also gonna communicate like what's the consequences of that. So
yeah, so the next one is the invisible car one, where it's when they're in the club
yeah.
and they're my favorite character in this episode is Darius. I love when he calls him up and he's like, dude, I'm at home, and he's eating cereal and shit, and he's just chilling.
Yeah.
But basically, the episode is about kind of that club lifestyle. This is also the one where Donald's trying to get paid, right?
From the Jamaican club owner.
I love how the secret door passage, and he just hides and keeps running away from me. He's like, yeah, man, I got you, bro, I got you, and then he like disappears, and he's like Batman disappearing.
Was he Jamaican or Nigerian?
I forget what he was.
I think it was Nigerian. Yeah.
But either way, it's a super funny episode that has one of the best callbacks that it ever has, and it's played so straight that it's so funny. That's what makes it funny, that it's played so straight. But the fact that I love how it pops up on Instagram. He's like, yo, you got the invisible car though? And he's like leaning on it, and he's chilling. It's like, yo, this guy's cool, man. He's got that. And then eventually when it comes back around, when it like runs people over, it's so funny, man. That episode killed me. That episode murdered me. But what do you think about this one?
I think this is probably my favorite of the entire series.
Yeah.
I also love at the end that in order to get their money, like Alfred literally has to like go back to like his like hood lifestyle and like beat it out of the guy, you know. And it's like, and even at the end, the club owner is like, damn, he's real. And it's like, call the cops. What are you doing? It's just so many great moments in that. So that one by far is one of my favorites. Definitely. And again, continuing the theme, the one that's like probably the most like socially conscious one is definitely the June
episode
theme.
9.
That one.
If you want to break it down, the premise of it.
Yeah, it's basically that Ern and Van go out to this kind of
Van, for anyone, Zazie Beetz, Ern's girlfriend, fiance, girlfriend. Yeah, girlfriend in the episode.
Or baby mama, I think is the more accurate term.
Sure.
They go out to this mansion where these like fancy white people or I guess this white dude and his black wife are having this party to celebrate Juneteenth or whatever. Now, for those that are unfamiliar, Juneteenth is a largely African American celebrated holiday that focuses around like the emancipation of the slaves and stuff like that. So like it's always in the middle of June, so we're coming up on it right now. But it's just funny that they go out to this thing, and I think it's really a commentary on how much white people are into black people shit. Especially the guy who's hosting this party is this dude who has all this African decor around the place. Like when he offers Ern a drink, he's literally offering him like Hennessy. By the way, this was the first time we got an Easter egg for Donald Glover's Childish Gambino's new album, "Waking My Love." It's framed like perfectly in the background of like one of the shots.
Right. Holy crap!
So it's just crazy.
And it's also him like telling him like, "Oh, have you not been to Africa?
Yeah, I've been like
Africa 15 times."
And again, that's the whole thing of like the wealth and the privilege of like, you know, white people who go to Africa and like discover our culture versus people who are from America have been like disenfranchised for their entire lives, can't make the hundreds or thousands of dollars in plane tickets and hotels to like stay in Africa or whatever. So they're just they're not able to go, and you're not able to experience the culture that was brought from them from the very beginning. And I think that's a fascinating commentary on that and how this dude's fascination for black culture. I think they even describe it. I think Ern even describes it as like a Spike Lee directed Eyes Wide Shut. You know, it's very much like this culty, weird kind of vibe that they have going in this house. So this is another like classic episode, I think, of Atlanta. It's very socially potent throughout of like what it has to say about like this kind of stuff. So
it's great, absolutely. Let's jump into season 2. Just because we're running short on time. The finale is great too because it shows how Ern was living. Speaking of more on money, kind of living in
right,
that.
he's living. Yeah, he's living. Yeah. The end of season 1 reveals a lot about Ern, but then season 2 picks up, I think, an entire year later.
Yeah. So you told me beforehand, and I agree with you more and more, especially after the recent episodes of Atlanta, that season 1 is very much a quirky, funny comedy, where season 2 is much more dramatic.
Oh yes.
Even would you even say drama? It's even much more of even a drama with comedic elements, and that starts out with the first few episodes,
Literally
starting with
the
Alligator
first
Man.
opening scene of the first of the second season. They call it Robin season.
Yeah, that shit was wild.
Yeah.
Watch it, guys. But it's basically like a robbery that's going down.
Yeah, they titled the season. They didn't want to title it season 2. They wanted to call it Robin season because they wanted to
That's what it's called.
Right, exactly, because they wanted to have this theme running throughout of like the robbery that happens in life, like not just from like they start the season off with like this completely unrelated robbery that happens in the beginning, but the whole theme of the season is like how different aspects of our lives are like robbed away from us in different ways and respects. So it's a very subtle theme that plays throughout the season, but that's the overarching like idea that drove.
That's pretty groundbreaking for a television show, considering that it's not an anthology show like Black Mirror, but it has a running theme throughout it, like you said, which this season is literally episode Robin season. Yeah, that opening shot's crazy, and obviously the rest of it's pretty funny. With Ernst,
Tracy coming out of jail.
Yeah.
So there's a new character.
What's his name again?
Tracy.
No, his the uncle. The uncle.
Oh.
Is that
played by Cat Williams?
Cat Williams.
Yeah.
When Cat Williams has
that to me is like the best. Cat Williams got to win an Emmy for that one, man. He has to win an Emmy for that, man. Like,
it's hysterical, man.
That is wow. I mean, like, I never really liked Cat Williams like all that much. I don't think he's like that funny of a comedian.
He was like someone that I never really got introduced to. He was like I was much more on the Chappelle train. But Cat Williams was very popular.
Cat Williams is funny because he's vulgar, but like beyond the vulgarity, there's not much behind his jokes.
Yeah.
But then like this episode really toned him down and like made a pretty interesting character study of like this dude, and it's kind of another self-reflexive kind of thing of like how Cat Williams' character used to be this big deal, how he used to be this kind of person who was admired and respected amongst the community, but then like ultimately just like was like left to the wayside, and that's kind of the way like Cat Williams' career in general is going, like because of like the crimes that like the real Cat Williams is committed in real life. His comedy career ultimately just kind of.
I was gonna say, where's Cat Williams been this whole time?
Yeah. It kind of falls in and out. So like this episode kind of brings that up in a very nice way. It also just brings up how the alligator scene in the South really is, dude. Like, because I'm telling you. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. This episode also gave us the Florida Man joke, right?
Yes, it did. Yeah, the Darius Florida Man. Dude. But that's a meme, right?
Yeah, that's literally it's a real thing. Like people had the whole like the Florida, like the if you don't know, like in the show they make this whole thing of like Florida Man ate somebody's face, or Florida Man did this. That's the actual meme on the internet because of how many crazy stories we just end up seeing coming out of Florida, and how all of them are just like Florida Man. It'd be like Florida Man, like eats a goat or whatever. Like it's just so much weird and random shit. And this episode, like, it kind of reframes that into like
an actual one person doing all the crazy
stuff. Just
stuff.
One person being like the one Florida Man, and it's like almost like a horror type of like flashback. Yeah. So I don't know. That's very. So
it's funny that it comes from Darius too.
Yeah.
Because that would come from Darius.
Yeah.
Like, all right, this is coming from you, man.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. It is definitely. Yeah. I think that's very social consciousness as well. Kind of shows like, this is why there's Florida has this kind of perception, and Florida also has this this strange like there's a strange fascination of like all these stories that come out of like Florida, like what's up with Florida, but it kind of makes it its own original like joke and does its thing, and also brings up like the whole alligator problem of like the actual real state of Florida, and of course Atlanta has alligators too, but that whole theme of like the Florida alligators coming out towards the end of this episode. It's
But
just funny.
what's funny too, and I know this is something that's silly, but it's still funny when the alligator actually comes out, and it comes out to like epic music and stuff, and it's like, oh shit, alligator's about to tear some shit up, and it just goes to sleep, like right in the front lawn, and just lies down and it goes to sleep like that. It's pretty funny too. That's like a fun way to end the episode, and also as he's like running away too. So the next few episodes. This is the one where episode 2 starts out with the gift card one. That's the one we talked about beforehand with Tracy. Also, that opening was pretty funny when he gets robbed. And the car, he's like, I'm so sorry about this, man. But can I play? Remember that? When he keeps apologizing, that's a pretty funny opening for me.
Yeah, again, the whole robbery theme, and again, this is this whole season is concerned with like the crimes that like society is placing on the people. And we see a lot more of Tracy in this, a dude who got out of prison without like much to his name, and he has to compete for the same kind of resources that Ern is competing for. Like we see in this episode, Ern wants to move in with Alfred and be more involved, but because of Tracy being there, like they have to fight for the same kind of scraps. You know what I mean? Eating off the same people. This episode's great, and I think that overall. What this show has grown to represent more and more is like the individual characters in this show, because we see a lot of solo time with Ern in this one, and in later episodes we see like complete like just like spin-off episodes.
With
like,
different characters.
Including
one we got one in season 1 with Zazie Beetz' character. I forget her. What's her name in the episode again? Van.
Yeah.
We get one in episode 5 when she's a teacher.
I remember that episode. That literally my mom was watching Atlanta all the way up until that point, but she was just so disgusted with that episode, with the teacher episode.
Well, what part?
Oh, just like how she was like getting the
pee sample,
the pee out of. I don't want to spoil it, but like, she was like so disgusted by it. She was like, "I'm never watching this show again," and like never ended up watching it. After that one,
she missed the ending though. The ending was kind of funny.
Oh no, she
with the kid.
The kid in the white face. That's crazy. That episode.
But she has another one too in season 2. But let's talk about the next one, which is the Clark County. So essentially, Clark County plays the, like you said, the industry. What is it called?
Industry plant.
Industry plant, where he's very much the straight-laced, straight-edged, like literally straight-edge.
Yeah. Based on somebody like a Pharrell,
Pharrell. Pharrell's dope, man. I love Pharrell. But he's also like a crazy guy in the actual like studio when he's recording songs.
Yeah.
I love that scene, dude, where he's like playing it. He's like, oh, okay, man, but just don't make that mistake again, man. Don't make it again, okay? Everything will be fine if you don't make the mistake again. And he's like freaking out like internally, but he's trying to like not like go too crazy. Yeah. But he has his 2 bodyguards who are like thugs.
Yeah.
And then when
he's like the engineer. The engineer's trying to record some songs, but the engineer is like software crash.
Keeps messing up.
Yeah.
And then I love how the 2 thugs go up to Darius, Al, and Ern, and are like, I think you guys should go home. And they're like, oh, cool. And they just go home. But basically, I love that episode because it also gives us the best song in the entire show, which is Yoo-hoo, Yoo-hoo, doo-doo, Yoo-hoo, doo-doo, Yoo-hoo. I met with a bitch and they like, I don't know what he says, but it's so fucking catchy. Yeah. And then what's his face? Darius is, I think Darius is like, oh, yo, Clark County, man. And he's like, yo, this shit is dope, man. This shit's catchy. Mm-hmm. And then Ern's like, man, this shit sucks, whatever. But it's still like that very much like brand-friendly selling chocolate milk. Literally selling chocolate milk called Yoo-hoo chocolate milk. Yeah. And he has like a little jingle that goes with it. Right. But it's also like Little Yachty selling Sprite too.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I think they're
Little Yachty.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what they're like poking fun at. It was like how Little And to be fair, when
I saw that Little Yachty Sprite commercial the first time, I freaked out. I was
when
like,
I saw him in the Target commercial, I was like,
the Target commercial.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I was like, damn.
Isn't Metro Boomin in like a Navy commercial?
He's in a Navy commercial.
Old Navy commercial.
Yeah.
Oh
dude,
my
that shit
god.
is hilarious. Or it's Gap or one of them. It's either Gap or Old Navy. SZA's in that commercial too.
SZA is in that
Yeah,
commercial.
yeah.
I love SZA, man. SZA's my
Yeah.
girl. I've been talking about her forever, man. On this episode, I mean, on this show too. Like, I've been talking about SZA.
SZA's amazing. I know they got that whole TDE like tour that's happening.
She's also in. Isn't she in? I swear that was her in the "This Is America" music video for Childish Gambino.
Which one?
She in "This Is America."
Oh, she was in that.
She's like in the. If you see her on the side, maybe I'm mistaking her, but I'm pretty damn sure that was her. I'll show you later.
Okay.
But
that's a very potent music video too.
it is.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. I kind of want to finish with that. Do you think that's cool?
Yeah, that's cool?
We're literally just spitballing this, guys, but I kind of want to finish with
episodes.
that. But I love the intro of this freaking episode with the freaking mom, the white mom with the blonde lady who's like, I just heard a song from my son's music. It's by this rapper named Paperboy, and I'm going to read the lyrics for you guys. It's so offensive, so I'm so sorry. I apologize for the vulgar content. And she's like reading the lyrics, and she's my favorite line, which I said on this episode before, is the sometimes you got to slap a trick, shout out Colin Kaepernick, and she's like freaking out, and she's like her lips are shaking. But it's like, this is what the song said, guys, but it's also making fun of the Vince Staples viral video, which is literally that exact same thing. Where she's reading the lyrics of what's that song? North.
Yeah.
I love that song too.
Song, yeah.
And it's also playing
I never
fun.
had nothing but I don't run from nothing but the police. That's literally the lady.
It's like literally it looks like the lady from that real like viral video that went around. But that also plays commentary on it too.
It's the real life, how like the real life, the making fun of like the real life hip hop scene, and how that kind of ended up blowing up.
Because Darius
Staples into new stratosphere.
Because Darius says that he's like, man, that white lady's the best thing that happened in my career.
And I love the scene after when like they're sitting at the bar, and then like the bartender is like, hey, free shots, Paperboy. Also some free wings, man. Also put me on. Put me on, man. Put me on. It's just so funny.
And I love how Ern keeps trying to jump in, and he's like, who are you? Shut up, man. I'm talking to Paperboy. And he's like freaking out on Ern. The next episode is when he goes to this is the one I was talking about, but it's a much more Zazie Beetz episode. This one's heartbreaking, man. This one, it starts to get a little more dramatic with this episode. Obviously it has some funny moments. One of my funniest moments is I'll talk about it later, but this one is so Zazie Beetz, for anyone who doesn't know, is half German as well. So
they go to like this German
festival. I forget, because German has it's a very interesting culture. I was gonna say weird, but it's a weird culture, but it's very interesting. But it's a fun little juxtaposition to play within the cultures of. Zazie Beetz is very much African American, but she's also part German, but like literally half German. So she speaks fluent German, and she identifies with that. So she's celebrating her German side, while at the same time bringing Ern along, and Ern is just a fish out of water, like to the 10th degree. But this one it gets very intense at the end, but it still has like a funny moment where they're playing ping pong, and he's like, man, I swear I can just tell you these things when we're alone. And then the camera pans, and it's a guy in a weird baby mask. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. That moment just made me laugh so hard.
Oh man, did we already pass the episode? The last episode before this one was the one with when Ern was racing Michael Vick.
No, this is afterwards.
Oh, it's afterwards.
I think it is. Yeah. Oh no, that's the strip club episode, right?
Yeah. So I think that's the.
You're right.
That's the one that opens with the white lady, and then closes with the actual thing of Michael Vick. Which, by the way, Michael Vick is actually went on record and said he's willing to do that, like in real life with people, like to just race people in the fucking parking lots.
That's so funny. It was just literally like, that's why this show's great, because it's so random. And he's like, yo, Michael Vick's racing people. And you don't even question it. You're like, all right, I'm gonna race him. It's like that's your first reaction of Michael Vick, and it's actually Michael Vick too. It's not even an actor playing him. That's even better, man.
That scene. So I mean, there's a lot of funny moments. We don't want to spoil all of them, I guess. I guess the main one we should probably talk about, the barbershop one, is funny too. That's another one that comes after the Zazie Beetz more focused episode.
Sure. The last thing on this German one is it's very much an identity thing with identifying. Even in the description of the episode, it says Afro-German, which is an interesting way to say those two combinations. But it's also Ern kind of getting trying to struggle with relationships within the hip hop culture, which is also something that's very relevant within the hip hop culture. Is like
misogynistic.
Exactly.
Kind of,
you can't really be with one girl because it's like, well, I can't be with one girl because now that I'm famous and I'm hip hop, you know, I got to be with a lot of girls, kind of thing. And that's kind of what gets to his head, which is heartbreaking at the end of the episode. Yeah, the barbershop episode is just ridiculous.
It's funny, man.
It's hilarious. Just too much.
I
was like, yeah, all right.
Oh, man.
I think I would shoot this guy. I get annoyed so easily.
Well, see, here's what it is for me. Like, and people don't understand this, but the barber for the black community is like the pinnacle of the gatekeeper of the culture. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't have your one barber that you always go to, you're never gonna like. And it says as much at the end when he like tries to switch barbers, and he's like, "Hey, what do you want cut, man?" And he's like, "I actually want to, actually I don't know." Like he just doesn't know. But your barber automatically knows. You have a connection with your barber as to who and what you're gonna cut, how you want it, how much you like it, all that kind of stuff. So that's a very powerful connection. I have a barber who's kind of shitty. Who's almost like completely similar to like this guy, where like he'll literally have to go. I'll literally have to go to his house to like get it cut. He'll show up like hours late, and just like leave in the middle of the haircut sometimes. Like, so I definitely know the plight that he goes through. That's very true to like a lot.
It's pretty funny, and it's also pretty insane too. The next one is someone that's very popular because it's the Teddy Perkins episode.
It's the highest rated episode on IMDb.
It is, and it's so basically it's a Darius spin-off episode. So Darius is Lakeith's character, and it's him wanting to buy a piano off this crazy weird rich person, but then he discovers that the crazy weird rich it's such a weird episode. The crazy weird rich person is actually was a famous musician.
Yeah, like a Michael Jackson,
like a Stevie Wonder type Michael Jackson type.
But he like bleached his skin in the same way as like Michael Jackson.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it comes out and it's actually played by Donald Glover. So the episode is very much like a weird dark comedy / horror.
Yeah, I think it's more horror.
It's a horror episode, and it's a horror episode all around the most ridiculous character in the show, which makes it even better. Yeah. But what do you think about this one?
This one's hilarious. This one's probably one of my top ones. It was not really funny. I didn't get it when I first saw it. Well, I did get it, but like I was like, damn, this is like really, I don't know what the point of, like, what are they trying to say here, you know? But then like it definitely is a gigantic commentary. And again, I mentioned the Jacksons because it very much features that whole element of abuse too, like how
that's a good
famous
point.
kid performers are like constantly abused by their parents to like become better, be better, do better. And that's the case for Teddy's character in and of himself, and with his brother Benny. Who we discover has his own kind of thing and his own kind of place in the story. So again, I don't want to spoil it, but it definitely it's a very strong commentary on fame while also being like this very like spooky kind of like anti-digestible version of like the Atlanta formula, you know, where you're feeling constantly uncomfortable throughout this entire thing. Again, it's a commentary on fame, on abuse, parental abuse, child stars, and all that kind of stuff. We see like some flashback footage of like when there was a younger Benny who was like the bigger artist out of like the two brothers. And again, that's why it makes the Michael Jackson comparison, because it's the how the Jackson 5 crew were like really like getting beat by Joe Jackson, the father, you know what I mean? And he was like really laying into him. And that's the same way we see the Benny character in this show, who was like the standout star of like those kids. They don't, a lot of stuff happens off screen. They just kind of tell you about it, but they show some footage of like a flashback of like when Benny was a kid, like getting beat up by his father, and then Teddy just watching that and like indulging that and just becoming more and more like psychotic as he like looms on like this past that he once had with his relationship with his family. So it's just a very fascinating character study of like fame and stuff like that, but also still kind of being a little funny in its own self.
Yeah, and it's oddity, I guess.
Yeah, it's oddity. I think a lot of people found comedy in it. I didn't find comedy in it initially because Donald Glover actually plays this like white-faced kind of character. I didn't realize that initially.
I told you about it later.
Yeah, you told me about it, and like I said, like on this podcast before, I literally didn't know until like the next week after that was like the real Donald Glover. But then it was just funny how they played that. So yeah.
Yeah. So, oh yeah, the Drake
Champagne
episode
Papi is great. And again, another commentary.
It's all about Instagram.
And the Instagram, yeah, taking photos for the gram.
Fun fact, I did the Spanish version of "Call Me on My Cell Phone" song. That was me.
You really?
That was me.
Oh, okay.
I did the Mexican. No, I'm playing.
Hey, that's funny though. The Mexican grandpa that was staying under Drake's house or whatever.
Yeah.
That. By the way, I love the fact
Hotline Bling Spanish remix by Fuego. I'm part of Fuego, guys.
Fuego, bro. That's how it is.
That's me.
Yeah, this is a very interesting look at not only the Instagram life, how we cling to Instagram, to like, you know, for clout or whatever, going to Drake's house and stuff, but it also speaks
just to get a picture.
Yeah, just to get a picture.
It really is so. Damn, it's so true, man. Like, everything is based on, if I can just get one picture with this celebrity, I swear, like, that's it. That's what I can do. Especially living in LA. That's, like, a big thing, too.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right. So it's just, it's big on that, but it says a lot. I mean, I know this episode kind of was a little controversial among, like, Black Twitter, in terms of its representation of Black women in this episode. How there's that one character that follows around. The white girlfriend.
Yeah, really, I didn't know it was controversial.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of Black women felt pretty offended by like the way they portrayed the one character who was like following them. What basically happens in the show is Van and her friends all go to Drake's house, and then each of the friends go on like their own separate like adventures. So Van goes off just like walking through Drake's house, and then one of her friends follows around this white woman who is married to a Black actor. So she's literally just following her around the entire episode, and towards the end of the episode, she starts yelling at the white woman about why like this story is it's a played out story. Like, I don't want to see, you know, white women with Black men and all that stuff. And then the white woman responds like, oh, well, what if I'm just a good woman, and like I've been with him for like 8 years before he was famous, and I was like taking care of him before like he could, you know, do that. And then towards the end of her rant, she's like, well, I don't have 8 years to blow on somebody, or like Black girls can afford to like waste 8 years or some shit or something like that. So it became a very like interesting conversation on Twitter for a lot of people who felt like, you know, in many ways Donald Glover was like villainizing the white women, how they feel. And I think that's interesting considering how we talked about before, how early on in Donald Glover's like music discography, he was very disgruntled towards like Black women and towards Black culture in general, but particularly towards Black women. He would rap a lot about like not being with Black girls, you know. And he's married to a white woman as well. A lot of people also...
Dude, you're breaking news for me. I didn't even know that.
Or I don't know if he's married. I don't know if he's married, but he's definitely in a relationship with a white woman, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know exactly who. A lot of people also say that, you know...
Is that like a thing within the African-American community? Because I know Jordan Peele is too. Yeah. The actor who plays Luke Cage, Mike Coulter, is too. Mm-hmm. Like, is that like...
Well, no, it's not. It's not the fact that... it's not the fact that he is. It's not the fact that Black men date outside of the race. It's the fact that it is the fact that Black men disrespect the Black women in a lot of senses. I know that was a big conversation piece actually this weekend, really, with M'Baku, Winston Duke.
Winston Duke
is actually married to an Asian woman in real life.
That's right.
And there was there were some Twitter, not high profile Twitter accounts that are trying to drag him, like, oh, how can you know, how can all you Black women like him if he's like dating if he's married to an Asian woman or whatever. And a lot of like Black women responded like, we could still like somebody who's not dating, who's not with a Black woman, but they, as long as they're not disrespectful to the African American woman culture or African American women in general. And that's where a lot of people come into hot water, where particularly with Donald Glover being having a history of rapping not necessarily positive things about Black women, with having stand-up bits that are not necessarily positive towards Black women, a little bit disrespectful, is read as disrespectful, coupled with the fact that this episode is actually directed by a white woman as well. So there's a lot of different aspects that go into why that's a little controversial for a lot of people. I mean, I just think it's worth noting.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and but I definitely don't think dating outside black men dating outside the race is not a problem for a lot of black women in general. But the problem is when you start disrespecting black women as a result, and I think that's the main case here with why people were a little concerned about this episode.
Yeah.
But it's interesting too because ever since after Atlanta became big and after because of the internet. Donald Glover's position on black culture has shifted quite a bit, significantly, where I think he's starting to put out more pro-black shit just in his content. I mean, Awaken My Love is a throwback to like the Luther Vandrosses, the Marvin Gayes, those like political R&B kind of sounds that are coming out in the 60s and the 70s in the heat of the Vietnam War, particularly like the Marvin Gaye as well. With what's going on, he takes a lot of that like musical he takes a lot of that musical kind of vibe from that, again, like with the Luther Vandross, the Otis Reddings of the world. He takes a lot of that influence and makes it and updates it into a new digital age, while also having a lot of songs that are talking about relevant black issues on that album. The Boogeyman, Terrified, and Baby Boy are all songs that relate to some way or another to the plight of like black men in general. So he definitely has shown a different direction towards his choices and the way he represents the culture. But I think it's just a significant point to bring up. So
yeah,
about this episode at least.
It's interesting because I obviously I'm not a part of that, but it's so interesting to see how different communities respond to different issues and different things.
Yeah.
Let's finish up with the last few episodes, but at the same time, I kind of want to wrap it up a little quick because I don't want to go too long.
Yeah. I think it's the one episode I think I would love to talk about.
Yeah, I was going to say if you want to pick one of the last few,
it's definitely the one with the mother situation.
Okay.
That to me is
it's called Woods,
and that to me is probably one of the most powerful episodes ever in Atlanta. It's ever done, just probably in television in general, because this episode is so powerful in its symbolism about the relationship between mother and son, and how grieving with the loss of a mother is very important, and how you choose to deal with that grief is very viable in its own kind of way. And it's it's based, not based, but a lot of the main star of this episode, Brian Tyree Henry, he lost his mother quite some time ago. I think it was like about a year ago. So this episode was like almost like a reflection of like that grieving process through the character of Paperboy. Again, it's another example of like the writers kind of blending the lines between like reality and fiction, and mixing those two together to make something really personal and honest. And this episode in particular kind of really highlights that just throughout, like highlighting how the grieving process kind of affects us in our own type of ways. So that's all I really have to say about that. I've experienced some loss early, in the past, in the recent weeks. So like, and that too. So it's a very relevant episode for me as well. So it's very, very powerful in the sense that it does communicate how we perceive grief and how we cope with those circumstances, but at the same time how our connection to like our mothers and our parents and our grandparents in general just means so much to a lot of people. So
it does. Yeah. That's crazy. Thank you, man, for sharing that.
Yeah.
The one I want to talk about is North of the Border.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's funny as and ridiculous as this episode is. It's basically about how they go to perform to a predominantly black
like
university and college, or at least concert.
Yeah, maybe not predominantly black university, but definitely a university that it's probably like a lot of black people going to the hip hop show there. But
yeah,
it's definitely somewhere set in the South, of course, and we see later in the episode one of the major frat houses that just so happen to live on that campus. So
essentially, it's funny because I think it's commentary in general on different types of aspects. Whether it's positive or negative is another thing, but it is very much that fraternity kind of weird lifestyle. But basically, shit goes down at a concert, and Alfred is desperate for weed. for a joint, and he happens to find it at a predominantly white fraternity, as they're currently hazing their newcomers, the pledgers, I guess is what they call
somebody
them.
who just pledged.
I was gonna say,
yeah.
You didn't do that.
I didn't like that.
But basically, like the notorious, for anyone who doesn't know, like the pledgers do some crazy shit. Like they've made movies about it too. Like it's notoriously crazy the type of shit they do.
Well, hazing in California is outlawed.
Yeah, hazing California, but for other places they go hard, and they've made like movies about how hard they get. But essentially, it's this white fraternity who's currently hazing their guys, and they're like running around naked and shit. And but at the same time, what I think is funny is how they try to relate, because it's the whole concept of like the white people loving hip hop and loving it. It's like, yo, I love your music, man. Like regardless of their political affiliations, their political beliefs, they're anti this, anti that, they still love it. Oh, your shit, bro, your shit's dope though. I love that hip hop.
Well, it's
that kind of juxtaposition though.
Well, it's not even like just a predominantly white fraternity.
No, it's
literally a Confederate
flag,
like pro guns, like
pro
they have a whole
NRA,
gun row,
like super far right, far right.
Yeah.
And yet, as far right as you can go, and yet,
that
hip hop is dope, man.
Yo, UGK, man.
Yeah,
I love that snap music.
No, that scene is the best scene in almost all of Atlanta. It's like, all right, guys, get up. It's time to shake that Laffy Taffy.
Yeah,
shake that. And they're like,
Laffy Taffy.
Oh my god, that's, you don't think that's scene?
Hilarious. No, that's
that
funny.
scene freaked me out. I was like, yo, this shit's wild. But essentially, it is a commentary on that, and it's a commentary on how it's crazy how far right as these guys are. It's like a far right fraternity, and yet they're still trying to relate with weed and with hip hop. They relate to it, and with Darius' case, it's guns,
and Tracy as well.
And Tracy,
and
guns.
I think that's really what it's saying. Is like a lot of times, even though we fall opposite on the sides of the political spectrum, we're all ultimately the same people. You know what I mean? And not only that, it's also saying like, you know, the Southern relationship between people, even though these guys are literally Confederates who are like probably the most white supremacist guys in the world, they still like rap and weed the same way that black people still like guns, even though black people are supposed to be like the democratic, live on that side of the fence. But at the end of the day, it's less about politics. It's more about where you're from and where you're housed in and stuff like that. And all these guys just kind of, fucks with the same stuff. So
everything I was gonna say, you said.
Yeah.
It's literally what it is. Because that whole scene with the guns thing, I was like, yeah. At the end of the day, man, black people like guns. And white people like guns.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's like, yo, shit, you got that dope gun? Yeah, man, check it out. And it's like the same thing. At the end of the day, they still relate on that concept. And obviously, it's different spectrums of the field. But at the same time, it's so funny how, as divided as they are, they still like end up talking about the same shit. And even though it's super awkward, because when they're talking, it's super awkward, but it's still a very relevant episode on that hand. Obviously, the episode ends in a very dark place, and then the next episode is very much, I would say it's a much more dramatic, much more darker episode as well.
The Fubu one?
The Fubu one, where it's funny. Like a flashback episode.
Yeah, that one's very funny in the sense that it very much reflects like the black high schools and like how the roasting culture there is like super intense. Like,
it is, dude.
Yeah.
like this going back to school, man. I hated school, and it's so funny how like it reminded me of like, I love the scene where the girl passed the notes and he's like, do you like Erica, yes or no?
Yeah,
and it's like the most like simple shit, but I totally remember that shit back in school, where I was where liking, especially like middle school type times where you're like liking girls, you were like, yo, I like that girl, and you're like 10. It's like, it doesn't mean shit. But it's very much like a reflection on that. And also, you're right, the roasting culture of those schools as well is but at the same time it has a very much dramatic moment, dramatic ending.
Yeah. Again, it just keeps playing with the whole idea of like the comedy feat and then going into the consequences of that. So very potent stuff. And then of course the season finale is next week. I'm super excited for it. I don't know how they're going to end the season. There's a lot of threads that they kind of left open.
I'm curious how they're going to end it, because they got a lot to live up to. For our thoughts on the season finale, follow us on Twitter. I'm at Squad Leader Ace.
At RB3 Schmoes.
With that, we're going to close up, guys. But I want to hear your thoughts on the This Is America song and music video, first of all, RB3. Because I saw this over the weekend, and I thought it was fire. I thought it was dope. What do you think on this?
This is probably one of the most
both the song and the music video.
Well, like I said, Donald Glover has definitely adopted a more pro-black stance in like a lot of his stuff. And again, it's a very wide change. I remember when he did an interview with Charlemagne back in like 2013, and he would say things like he was looking to be like white people rich and stuff like that. So back in the day, he very much had like a whiter kind of like I guess not viewpoint, but like that was more of his perspective. Now he's looking at things from like the black angle and making art and entertainment from that. So this song, the song for one, it opens with like this kind of like Afro-Caribbean kind of like happy kind of African influence type of song, but then it immediately pops off with the gunshot and like how this is America for a lot of black people, like the carrying the pistols, staying banging, surviving on your own is that for people, and how the conflation of gun violence among black men and women, or mostly black men, is conflated with the same kind of conflicts of like mass shootings and horrible tragedies of like gun violence throughout the country. We see that from the very beginning when he's wearing just pants and with no shirt. Immediately kind of evoking the kind of flipped around look of like the guy who just shot up the Waffle House recently, who I guess not famously, but like came in and killed 4 people and like without wearing pants, just a shirt, just a basic fucking white guy. But it's like it's a flip on that, instead of like no pants and being white, he's wearing no shirt and being black, and how that kind of flips around the conversation somewhat. The video starts with him killing somebody, and then immediately with like as he's talking about this is America, rapping these bars about contraband, drug dealing, all this type of shit. He got like students behind him. Again, like another reflection of like all the mass school shootings that's been happening as of recently, including Parkland, including Sandy Hook, including Columbine, including Columbine, and all this kind of stuff too. A lot of other imagery they present in this. There's also that scene of the choir singing, and then
that's
he comes
also
in.
Commentary on the
on the church shootings with Dylan Roof, who killed 9 people back in 2015, and the church and First Baptist Church in North Carolina, Charleston, North Carolina. There's also the church shooting that happened recently in Sutherland, Texas. I think Sutherland Springs, Texas, where 26 people were killed in the church as well. So it's a lot of commentary that's being said here, a lot of ample stuff that's like very important, very relevant, I feel like, to the whole culture and discussion of gun violence, and how the riots that are happening in the background are kind of not similar, but kind of evoke the kind of the sporadic riots that were happening as a result of like police brutality and the Black Lives Matter movement and Ferguson and all that kind of stuff. Not Black Lives Matter movement, because Black Lives Matter is not like the protests and the riots, but that's just more of the activism side of it. But it's just so powerful and relevant.
There's so many different layers and themes throughout that music video. It's crazy. Like you can even argue the ending when he's being chased by the crowd and by the mob, and there's so many different layers to it that it's definitely interesting for sure. When he's dancing on the cars, the empty cars, and the lyrics of the music video, the dances he chooses to do, like everything is very much layered. And
he does the Black Boy.
As soon as he did that, I was like, I'm in. I love it. I'm in. As soon as like, watch me. And he's like doing that. I was like, all right, I'm in. I'm sold.
Yeah.
But when he's like dancing with them and the dances he chooses to do are pretty funny too. I think that's even relevant within itself. Like even that episode I just talked about, North of the Border, when they're doing the little snap. It was like you're into snap music. Remember when that was the shit?
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you, because when I was in high school, that was the shit. When you were probably like 5.
Yeah.
But for me, that was in high school.
And
that's like the snapping. Like that snapping was like the shit.
But then this one, I think it's also a commentary on, most of the actual rap lyrics aren't really saying much, and I think that's.
But he's saying like he's basically saying, "Watch me move."
Yeah,
I'm
exactly,
so cool.
exactly,
I'm so pretty.
exactly.
I'm so dope.
And that's exactly what it is. It's the whole rap image thing of like how we put on this image. I think that's why he was doing like the Black Boy dance, all this kind of stuff. Like how it's like how these lyrics are kind of glorifying killing and shooting and drug violence, and drug dealing and gun violence, but it's popularized and seen through the eyes of the media as being like this kind of positive thing, not positive thing, but like is presented in a way through rap music. It's like idolized through rap music, to say the least. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good deal. I recommend you guys check out the music video. It's on YouTube if you haven't seen it already.
Yeah.
I recommend Childish Gambino. I recommend Atlanta. I recommend Donald Glover. I recommend going out to see Han Solo to support.
Hey man,
we should
just do a whole lead up to this, man. Like we should do Phil Lord and Chris Miller next week.
Oh shit! You want to do that? That'd be dope.
And then like the week the movie comes out, we do Ron Howard.
Yeah.
And do the spoiler review for Solo. This is usually shit we talk about off camera, but
no, I think
that's
okay.
a good idea.
That's a fun idea. Keep following us on the social medias. I wanted to talk about SNL. We unfortunately ran out of time, guys. I recommend you guys go check out his SNL skits. There's actually a lot of skits that are very much socially conscious as well and have a lot to say about current American culture, which is always relevant, and it's always interesting to hear different people's opinions. So be positive, guys. Be a light unto the world, and we will be a light unto you. Oof. I just made that up, but it's all good. And with that, that's the meaning of podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed. Leave us comments. Let us know, what is your favorite Childish Gambino song? What's your favorite episode of Atlanta? What's your favorite moment in Atlanta? Because there's a lot of fun moments that we probably didn't touch on.
What about Community, too?
Oh, Community.
Yeah.
I still love the second paintball episode. That's like my favorite.
Didn't the Russo brothers direct that one?
I think so.
Yeah.
The second, I mean, the first one's funny and cool, but the second one, they just stepped it up. Like
it feels
it's literally like an action movie.
Yeah.
It's like 21 Jump Street, where it's funny, and they have like it's super like Suicide Squad 2, where they have title cards come out.
Exactly,
where it's like camera pan and then
or like Creed. I
like killed these people. Like Creed. Yeah. That's probably my all-time favorite Community episode. I think it's season 2 or 3.
I think it's 3. Yeah. One of them.
But that episode's hysterical. There's a lot of other funny ones too. I love the one where they're talking about NBC's The Cape. Shout out to anyone who saw.
I remember
back when superheroes were. Remember NBC's The Cape?
That was the one superhero show we had at that time.
I
literally remember that show.
They were like, we're gonna bring superheroes to TV, and it's like The Cape.
And it was like the super dark, dreary. Like,
it's a guy who just flips a cape and catches shit, and he's like. And he's like practicing catching shit with his cape, and Abed is like super into it. And what's his face? Joel McHale is like making fun of him for it. That one's funny too. 6 seasons in a movie, guys. Favorite Atlanta moment, Atlanta episode, Donald Glover moment, Donald Glover song, Childish Gambino. Shout out to Childish. I could have gone into like a bunch of Childish music stuff because like I have favorite lyrics and stuff like that, but unfortunately, like I said before, we ran out of time. And with that, that's the meaning of podcast, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. Share, comment, like, support the homies because we're the homies, and we consider you guys homies too. And with that, that'll be all for the meaning of podcast, and we are peacing out, guys. Peace out.